Hello, welcome to my module 1. My name is Sabrina Patrick. I am newly actually Mrs. Feistner. I just was able to get married on the 14th, right before all of the COVID-19 CDC restrictions happened, so that is super exciting. Here is a picture of my husband Alex and I and our wedding crew. I do live in Lindsborg, Kansas. It is referred to as Little Sweden quite often. My husband Alex is a farmer and also a diesel mechanic, and we have a yellow lab named Hooch, who also has quite the personality, who you might hear me refer to often. We do not have any children, and we bought a house here in Lindsborg and are beginning lots of home renovations, especially now that I don't have much to do or working from home now, as I'm sure many of you guys are also. So I went from Miss Patrick, or Miss P, to Mrs. Feistner. I work for USD 305. I'm a second grade teacher. I have taught there for about 3 years. So we've gone from in school to now virtual. We're hoping to be up and running by April 6th, which is exciting. I do work for a Title I school building. I have about 19 kids, 5 are on the autism spectrum, some behaviors, and we are a pretty scripted district, so at times that can be kind of difficult, but I enjoy working through it, and sometimes it makes me a better teacher and keeps me organized and obviously driven to always improve. So, 3 different types of mindset that all students can learn. The teacher collaboration is important rather than isolation and being alone. That is key to have happiness and optimism, and I do agree with these. The second point of teacher collaboration over isolation, excuse me, I think is important. If you think about it, we are in a classroom often all by ourselves. And when we do have staff professional development days, you know, those things are already set for us. So I think that that's kind of an interesting point. We are in a field that we want to continually grow, whereas often we can't quite observe people often. So I think that this is probably a part that we could work on more. The 5 types of dispositions were confidence, risk taker, and being decisive, having a good sense of humor, being empathetically assertive, and always wanting to continue being a learner. I agree with all of these. I often feel that principals, and including my principal, thankfully, is all 5 of these things. Of course, no one is perfect, but I feel like it is so important for a leader to have these things. Confidence to make the decisions that they are ready to make, especially oftentimes at the seat of their pants, especially I'm thinking of the COVID-19 things. Having a sense of humor, being able to continue with that mindset every day, and really just being there for teachers, staff, and the students. He is certainly a go-getter, and I am very proud to work for the principal that I do. The 3 different types of practices with the research are focus and prioritizing different things, examining feedback and data, and having that emotional intelligence to be able to read their staff, and kind of that common sense borderline. I do agree with all of these things, and I think that having that focus and prioritizing is probably the most important in my opinion. The 8 different principles of ethical leadership, personal courage, public interest, ahead of self. I feel that this one is very important. To be a leader, at times you really do and are asked to be quite selfless, yet personally having that separation is really important. Self-control, self-discipline, integrity, having that high set expectation, not only for yourself, but also for your staff so that they follow in your lead. Having task and employee centeredness, you know, your staff will follow what you are what you are wanting to portray, what your goal is. And I feel like often if you make that clear and have empathy and recognizing the talent, I feel like all of these 8 things go right hand in hand. Requiring high ethics from everyone, not selecting favorites or different things, having sensitivity and understanding and realizing that, the staff are human and everyone is going through different things at times. And then number 8, I feel like is also important too. Do I agree with the research? I certainly do. I feel like it takes quite a bit to be a principal, especially these days. In the state of Kansas, it takes a very strong person to expect everything to run well and trust the person you work under and want to work for. I feel like that in turn also helps keep your staff there along with the district level, but I feel like the principal is vital and key in making all of that work. So personally, my self-critique on different mindset and my current teaching practices as well as at home, personally, I feel like I match that upbeat where your mindset is everything. Being personally driven, being rather selfless, not just always worried about yourself. Professionally, I feel that I am self-driven and a go-getter and positive. And we had empathy training and training for our staff, and I felt it was really important to stay curious, and that was kind of the lesson that we learned from that. And so kind of keeping that in the back of my head to continue as an educator, I feel it can really help with that mindset, and that kind of plays into all of those 8 different roles. So that is my growth for myself. What, if any, changes do you need to make? And that is kind of that same thing, interest ahead of self. At times when data is put in front of me, sometimes I tend to shut down because either I feel like it doesn't apply to me or it's old data and we've already changed stuff, because we're in a district that is so big and often we change things rather fast. So I would like to stay more positive when doing different things like that would be my goal, especially if I were to take a higher position. And just again, that mindset of staying curious, I feel like that plays into so many different things, which I feel like is really important. How all of this supports the educational success of well-being for students and adults. Students, I feel like every single one of those 8 steps really does fall into their needs as learners. The love you give your kids, they're going to remember that. And it's just not the love, it's the boundaries, it's the expectations, it's, what you provide for them in your classroom and the education you give them. And as well as like adults, whether that be just peers, co-workers, the people you work for or work under, just the guidance you give as educators, the love you give, the support, having those expectations so that they know where they need to improve on, or, just that sense of honesty I feel like is very important. And there are my references. Thank you so much for listening.